They hauled something from the sea that should not have existed. A hand-sized cluster of bronze gears, teeth worn smooth, stamped with tiny Greek letters. And it behaved like a computer, older than most empires. At first, no one knew what to do with it. A sponge diving crew drifting off a tiny island surfaced in 1900 with a haul of statues and coins from a smashed merchant ship. Among the marble and amphorae was this odd, corroded lump, too fragile to look like jewelry, too precise to be random. It went to a museum and sat on a shelf until a curious curator wiped away mineral crust and glimpsed a circle of gear teeth. That single moment turned a seaside curiosity into a locked box of questions. The device was nothing like a statue. Its bronze fragments hid concentric dials, tooth wheels so fine they looked like watchmaking, except watches with that sophistication were supposed to appear 1,000 years later. Someone had built a machine that tracked cycles of the heavens, the motion of the moon, the timing of eclipses, the repeat of lunar months, even the complicated overlap of solar and lunar calendars. How and why did this tiny mechanism appear on a Roman-era ship? Who made it? And how had such precise engineering slipped entirely out of history? The first big clue arrived in the details carved into the metal. Faint inscriptions, Greek words and numbers, were a language of instructions. They named months, warned of eclipses, labeled gears. It read like a manual for the sky. That should have solved the mystery, an astronomical instrument. Instead, it made the mystery larger. The machine wasn't merely observational, it embodied long cycles. The metonic cycle that aligns lunar months with solar years, a Saros cycle used to predict eclipses, mechanical knowledge expressed in gearing. Whoever built it had turned abstract time into turning teeth. Decades passed with speculation and small discoveries. Then a historian of science took a wrecked bronze gear seriously. He mapped the teeth, made crude models, and announced a claim that sounded impossible. This was an analog computer, an ancient machine that could calculate celestial events. The claim landed like a defiant hammer blow. For years, scholars argued aloud in journals and lecture halls. Clockwork of this precision did not exist in the ancient world. The accepted story said such mechanisms were the triumph of medieval Europe. This relic violated that tidy timeline. More clues kept surfacing. X-rays, and later, in the 21st century, high-definition tomography pierced the crust and revealed a hidden interior, dozens of gears, some nested like a matryoshka, shafts set at angles we thought engineers of that age did not use. The scans exposed a back dial calibrated to eclipse cycles and a front dial staggered with planetary scales. One gear seemed built to perform a differential calculation, a principle so elegant that mathematicians considered it a breakthrough of the Renaissance. That revelation reframed everything. This was not a single curious clock, but the apex of a lost engineering tradition. Who had the skill and imagination to build it? Theories converged on the great Hellenistic centers: Rhodes, Alexandria, Pergamon, places where mathematicians, engineers, and artisans worked shoulders close. These were cultures that loved measurement and spectacle, theaters with iron machinery, scientists who charted the moon and planets for centuries. Yet the machine's survival was a cruel accident. It had been cargo on a merchant ship that sank, scattering its precious burden across a slope of rocks. The sea had preserved it oddly well. The ash and silt stopped metal from rusting at once. Without that shipwreck, the mechanism might have vanished like so much knowledge, repurposed or melted into other uses. The story took a human turn in the hands of modern investigators. A small band, engineers, classicists, divers, treated the fragments like witnesses. They reconstructed teeth counts, reverse-engineered motions. They argued over whether a particular pointer represented Venus or the moon's apogee. The debates were not abstract. They were people pushing back on assumptions, wrestling with the visible decisions of an anonymous craftsman who had chosen one tooth size over another, one shaft length over another. Each choice implied a purpose, a need, a user who expected the device to perform with precision. Then came an even stranger clue. The machine's layout suggested it told stories of human time festival dates, ceremonial months tied to civic calendars and religious observances. It was not only a scientific toy for scholars, it was social technology. Someone built it to be read, to schedule events, perhaps to advise sailors or temple priests. That raises a question historians hate: who had access to this knowledge? If a city's calendar and eclipse warnings could be packaged into a portable instrument, that power concentrated knowledge in the hands of a few. Contradictions multiplied. Roman wrecks and Greek mathematicians seemed worlds apart, yet the ship held items from across the Mediterranean. Roman soldiers' arms, luxury goods from Asia Minor, statues plundered from galleries. Was the mechanism being transported as loot? As a research item? Was it being traded? Every theory about purpose unraveled into choices someone had made: to carry it aboard, to hide it, to let it slip into the deep. Then, the sea itself offered a dramatic twist. New expeditions returned to the slope where the original divers found the wreck. Modern technology, deep-sea sonar, robotic arms swept the descent and brought back fragments the first team missed. More objects, more context, more weight to the idea that the ship was a corridor of knowledge. Amphorae with inscriptions. Sculptural fragments from elite homes. A collection that suggests this wasn't an ordinary cargo ship, but a vessel bound for a wealthy patron, or perhaps a carrier of a circulating workshop's wares, moving tools and texts from center to center. The wreck became less an accident and more a snapshot, a single moment when cosmology and commerce collided. The cumulative revelations forced a turning point in thinking. If this mechanism could predict eclipses mechanically and maybe even model planetary motion, then whole swathes of ancient technology had gone missing. Not because they never existed, but because they were fragile and rare, vulnerable to war, recycling, and the slow attrition of centuries. The Antikythera device became an emblem, a reminder that our historical timeline is punctuated by gaps created by chance. The ultimate shock arrived quietly. The mechanism was not crude. Its gears meshed with precision, reminding modern engineers of watchmaking standards. It incorporated multiple interlocking cycles, layered like an orchestra that plays in long, irregular measures. The creators knew deep astronomical periods, intervals that require patient observation over generations. They embedded them into metal. That means institutional continuity. Observatories, scribes, apprentices kept records long enough to pass refined knowledge into engineering. Someone decided that knowledge should be made portable and predictive. Someone decided to turn centuries of skywatching into moving bronze. And yet, at the center of this long story is absence. No workshop full of similar gears has been excavated. No manual explains the methods. The names of the craftsmen and the patrons are erased. The machine's complexity implies a mathematical culture capable of more. But where are the other instruments, the treatises, the students who could have carried this forward? The mechanism stands alone like a single brilliant bone found in a fossil bed, hinting at a whole skeleton we have not seen. Even now, when museums display the fragments under pristine lights and digital animations spin its lost face, the device resists tidy endings. The more we probe its teeth and trace its pointers, the more it suggests networks of people. Engineers in islands, scholars in Alexandria, merchants moving goods across an anxious sea, who lived in a world where time, cosmos, and civic life were mechanically entangled. The machine is a relic and a provocation. It tells us what humans can make and what we can lose. So we stand before that corroded bronze and realize the deeper mystery is not the gears themselves, but what their existence implies. A single object overturns assumptions about progress and reveals that technology can spring up, bloom, and vanish like a city swallowed by sand. Somewhere between the makers who twisted bronze into prophecy and the divers who hauled it to daylight, a civilization of craft and thought flickered and dimmed. The sea returned one of its pieces. What else did it take with it? And if a single, hand-sized mechanism can change our story of human achievement, where else are the missing chapters of our past waiting, patient and silent, at the bottom of the sea?